is going to be so much fun to watch the Eagles beat up on a team not called the Dallas Cowboys this Sunday. It is a Super Bowl rematch in Week 2 as the Chiefs look to bounce back from both that Super Bowl loss from earlier this year and a Week 1 loss to Brazil, or in Brazil, to the Chargers. Of course, KC's defense has some big concerns, and they're taking on a Philly squad that finished its Week 1 matchup with 80% completion percentage, over 150 rushing yards, and no turnovers. So a tall task for sure. No one better to speak about it as we take a quick peek at the matchup with our czar of the playbook, Mr. Emory Hunt, tapping in. Emory, hopefully this matchup doesn't look like that Super Bowl, especially if you're Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But the spotlight on the defense right now, I think there were a lot of things that were exposed against the Chargers earlier this week. So if they're going to get their lick back, are you more concerned with KC's secondary, Emory, or their ability to get to the quarterback?
I'm more concerned, Haley, with their ability to get to the quarterback, because outside of Chris Jones, and we saw what we got from George Karlaftis, there's no other additional threat to rush the passer, and that's what they have to find. If they can't find a third consistent presence to rush the passer, it could be more of what we saw back in February. So that's the other element of this defense that you want to see evolve. I love what I saw from Drew Tranquil. He's a run and chase linebacker. He's aggressive. He's looking to blow stuff up. But they need someone additional along the defensive line to really be that constant nuisance along with Chris Jones and Karlaftis. If they can find one, they have a chance to really pressure this Eagles offensive line.
Of course, there's a lot of matchups and storylines all across this matchup. What's the biggest one that you're looking at, though, when it comes to a matchup to watch in this one?
The biggest matchup I'm looking for is this Eagles receiving core and how they incorporate, the third receiver. We saw that Jahad Dotson had a big play in the Super Bowl, had a big game in the Super Bowl as well. And we see how the Chiefs struggled on the back end to contain the deep ball. And so that's going to be the element where they're going to have to improve. And then on the flip side, you look at KC receiving core, even though they're beat up and banged up a little bit, they still have a chance to attack this Eagles secondary, i.e. the cornerback position, vertically down the field. So the passing game will be the biggest matchup. Who can win beyond the intermediate levels of the field, who can win deeper down the field, is the biggest matchup in this game, regardless of team you're talking about.
To take it a step further, I want to get inside the mind of the coordinators here, right? Because you've got Kevin Patullo, a guy who's maybe a little newer to the role of offensive coordinator, and you're going against a guy like Spags, who we know everyone respects. How much of that matchup you think will be spotlighted in this game?
I think it's going to be huge, and Patullo has the edge here because of the relativeness of the unknown, right? This is his first time as the OC for the Philadelphia Eagles, and so we know everyone, once they get into the kitchen, they want to add their own seasoning, right? Like sometimes you just keep the ingredients simple, but now I'm going to add a little bit more Tony Chachere's to this recipe than it calls for, right? So you never know what he's going to add to this offense, and that's the part that he probably held back in Week 1. So you can't really watch Week 1's film and gauge what we're going to expect in Week 2. So therefore, he has a slight edge, but we know Spagnuolo has been around, the world twice, spoke to everybody once. So there ain't much he hadn't seen. So at the end of the day, there's not much he can get away with in terms of, okay, I'm going to add this new wrinkle here or that new wrinkle there that can't get figured out after a series or a drive. So if that's the case, you still give a slight edge to Patullo because he has that relative nature of the unknown so far as the OC of this particular football team.
And listen, I know that the sky is falling when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs not winning in Week 1. They will have to prove to me that they are still not the best team in the NFL. I will just leave that there. It's interesting, Emory, when we talk about revenge games, that's typically what we call these rematches, right? Like Sunday's game between the Bills and the Ravens. It was a revenge game for everybody. We've talked to players before, some of our analysts as well. They've spoken about the revenge factor being true. But in the big picture, the grand scheme of all of this, are rematches, who really benefits from those?
This is a fascinating question, Haley, and having covered the CFL, we've seen the rare back-to-back. So they'll play a game on a Thursday, and then they'll have the same matchup the next following weekend. So that's a true rematch game, revenge game. When we're talking about these matchups that are a year, ahead or a year after, it's not the same situation. So neither team has the advantage because we know both rosters tend to change. Coordinators have changed. The situation isn't the same because nothing is on the line here. It's just Week 2. So it's not truly a rematch per se because a lot of the pieces are still there, but a lot of pieces are also gone and the scenario has changed. So both teams have to come in this and attack this as if this is the first time they're meeting each other. So I don't see this as a true revenge game. Some teams may try to tell you that and take that approach, but it's truly not the same, especially when you're not playing for that Lombardi trophy.
See, for me, like, my revenge will be when the Eagles visit the Cowboys later this year. And if we win that game, to me, like, that's a revenge game. But it's too early in the season. It's hard to see, to your point there. When it comes to the Chiefs and the Eagles, though, Emory, we do know one thing. They know how to get to Super Bowls. I believe between those two, 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls have featured one of them. I'm curious, though, do you expect either of them to advance to Super Bowl 60 later this year, or later this season, I should say?
Listen, I'm going to say the Eagles in the NFC, they look like the more complete team by far on both sides of the ball. Special teams, offense, defense, special teams, they got game breakers all across the field. I'm just going to get out in front and say Kansas City as well, because I've been on the Columbia broadcast station loud and wrong multiple times thinking that any other AFC team was going to get to the end, and we always end up watching the Chiefs play whoever's going to be out there on the NFC side. So both of these teams definitely have a great chance of getting back to the game, but the Eagles for sure I'm strongest about because of what they are built like and what they have in terms of the quarterback play. And you talk about a guy that has the same mindset as a Tom Brady. That's Jalen Hurts. And it's funny because Hurts is going through the same process that Tom Brady went through. Remember, for the first 3 years of his Super Bowl runs, people were discrediting Tom Brady. Like, oh, that's because of Bill Belichick. That's because of the defense. And then that 4th Super Bowl, they was like, all right, maybe he might be good. And then he went on to win a couple more after that, right? So I feel like Jalen Hurts is being disrespected, and he's on that same path of he's a psycho. I'm just going to lock in, play my game. You saw how they carried about this year coming into the season and not wanting to celebrate last year's Super Bowl. So the Eagles have the mindset, they have the quarterback, they have the explosiveness, they have the defense. They'll get to the end out of these two teams, in my opinion.
Who wins this game, though, coming up between the Eagles and the Chiefs?
Philadelphia. It doesn't matter if they're playing in KC, Missouri, or Kansas. The Eagles are the better team in terms of what they present on both sides of the ball. And we already saw some infighting already on the Kansas City side and on the defense, with Chris Jones sacrificing the edge, slicing inside, and letting Justin Herbert run around and end the game on a scramble, and him and Drew Tranquil on the side jawing at each other. So you never really see that with Philadelphia. The most you'll see is a wide receiver picking the book off the shelf and just reading it on the bench when he wants the football. Outside of that, there's no real infighting with Philadelphia because they're locked in, so I think they'll be locked in for week number 2 once again.
Listen, Emory, I don't like it, but I have to agree with you. The Eagles look very good in that week 1 opener against my Dallas Cowboys. Appreciate the time, as always, my friend. Here's a look at that week 2 slate coming up on CBS. How you like this? The Bills with the comeback for the century. They're going to take on the Jets, who almost beat Aaron Rodgers this past week, as you take in all of the other games happening on CBS this weekend. All right, Tiffany.
One of those other games, I will be in Cincinnati this
where
weekend.
are you?
So I got Jags at Bengals. So
What are you looking forward to in that one?
seeing Travis Hunter,
I
of
know.
course, in person, right?
Yeah.
Dual player. I think it's going to be exciting.
All right, we are excited for that. We're excited to catch Tiffany on the sidelines, and we are excited to continue our conversation on the other side here on CBS Sports HQ.